Hi, everyone. My name is Professor Doreen Lee. I'm a professor of anthropology at Northeastern University in Boston. So I'm joining you from Boston, which is 12 hours behind. I will be speaking about art and activism in today's panel. And the title of my paper is The Infrastructure of a Small Place, broadcast from a globalized art village in Indonesia. I'm here to tell the story of a now very famous art collective called Jatiwangi Art Factory, and it's JAF for short. And I'm here to talk about three things. Scale, first of all, what does it mean to think about a small place as the site of activity, productivity, and even a politics of place? And here I'm focusing on the activities of JAF, which involve the village level, the sub-district level, and the regency level. And then beyond that, the international level. I'm also here to talk about art as activism on different ways of engaging in locality with local citizens, with a high degree of engagement and participation. And so I think today's topic in my paper is a little bit different from the usual way that art is talked about in terms of activism. We see much more discussion of activist art as representation of certain issues, or art as critique, especially political critique, or art in the form of graffiti, for example, which is a very popular genre of activist art. But here I'm going to talk about something different. And the last thing I'll talk about is the question of infrastructure and connectivity in non-urban contexts, and how this impacts the kind of activism that artists are able to do in small places such as Jatiwangi in West Java. So the paper I'm about to give explores smallness as a quality of civic life and infrastructural capability in a non-urban context. I'm going to focus on the work of placemaking and identity making carried out by the artists and activists of Jatiwangi Art Factory, or JAF, a thriving multimedia and performance arts community based in Jatiwangi, a small sub-district in rural West Java. Jatiwangi is located approximately an hour and 20 minutes by car from the southern port city of Cirebon, about 3 hours from Bandung, the cultural urban center of West Java, and 3.5 hours by train from Indonesia's capital city, Jakarta. It is primarily rural, with most of the land use designated as farmland for rice cultivation, but also contains an important roof tile cottage industry that has lasted for over a century. Jatiwangi's size and location present important divergences from recent anthropological studies that measure citizenship through infrastructural connections and disconnections in large urban centers. The right to the city literature, for example, underscores the significance of securing connections in these urban struggles. Yet the urban emphasis in such territorializing claims to citizenship do not capture the different dreams and aspirations for rural citizens for whom the city does not beckon. That is to say, the city can be an unappealing place for non-urban citizens. In this paper, I pay attention to the way local actors from small places deploy different strategies to consolidate local heritage and identity, even as they negotiate with, rather than reject, large-scale private and state-led infrastructural interventions. It is hard not to view the story of the small place as an infrastructural story, whether that is because the anthropology of infrastructure is now so prolific that we are fully cognizant of the physical, systematic, and material networks that compose daily life, or whether it is because infrastructure as project has become the dominant national agenda of the current presidency, such that once out of the way places, or rather marginal locations like Jatiwangi, are becoming integrated into a national network of airports, roads, factories, and malls. Under President Joko Widodo, there has been a renewed commitment to a techno-political vision for Indonesian modernity, entailing close cooperation with Chinese, Japanese, and South Korean interests. Roads, railways, large-scale agribusiness, and real estate and developments are complex projects that conjure a mix of public-private partnerships, municipal, national, and international finance, and a compressed and aspirational timeline to completion. The techno-political cast of infrastructure neutralizes much of the sting of displacement with the balm of progress. We can discern from celebratory media reports and local residents' own narratives about infrastructural change a kind of inevitability as Jatiwangi's landscape is nationalized, conjuring its new geolocation out of a matrix of toll roads, international airports, shopping squares, and export-oriented garment factories. Yet how much more connected and accessible is Jatiwangi as a result of these changes? What modes of intensification can we study to understand other ways of being embedded in local, national, and international landscapes? And next, I'm going to talk about local engagements of nationalized space. The new Cipali toll road connecting Cikopo and Palimanan in West Java cuts through the farmlands of Jatiwangi at around a 166-kilometer mark. Ambitious forecasts are projected upon this road, billed as the longest toll road in Indonesia. The president himself opened the road on June 13, 2015, in anticipation of easing that year's Idul Fitri traffic. It aimed to reduce traffic on the overburdened North Coast Highway by 40%. Yet as late as June 3, 2015, the Cirebon newspapers, as well as the Bandung-based Pikiran Rakyat, were still reporting protests by hundreds of villagers from 6 villages in Majalengka Regency, including residents of Jatiwangi, over unfair and delayed compensation. The protests had resulted in physical destruction to the unopened highway, and on June 29th, the protesters returned for an even bigger protest, blockading the road. A year later, the protest over uncompensated land had dissipated. In fact, Jeff artists told me a different story about a major success in the struggle. While residents knew it was impossible to delay or defeat the massive infrastructure project, they had succeeded with Jeff's careful advocacy in pressuring urban planners to raise a section of the toll road and to build a new footpath and tunnel so that villagers could continue to access the fields on the other side of the 4-lane toll road. And indeed, when I visited in 2016, the activists took me through that little tunnel. So when I visited Jeff in August of 2016, one of the new hotspots I was told about was a recreation site that I thought was strangely named. Jeff artists referred to it by an English name. They called it the rest area. So for example, an artist said to me, "Let's go picnic in the rest area." My goal to see all that was new in Jatiwangi since my last visit almost 4 years ago resulted in a long itinerary. They decided that someone would take me to the roof tile museum that Jeff activists were constructing near the new Majalengka Water Park. Another activist would take me to see the generically named and foreign sounding rest area. He drove me on his motorcycle through narrow roads that took us through pretty residential neighborhoods until all the buildings had receded from sight. Soon we reached the end of the rice fields, bound by low concrete walls above which loomed a new toll road. He parked at an opening in the concrete wall, which served as the workers' entrance to a field that served as a parking lot. The rest area turned out to be a large, unfinished rest stop on the side of the Cipali toll road, the last of 8 brand new rest areas on the Cipali highway map, which is the map you see right now. The rest area appeared international in that its architecture bore no distinguishing features at all. The sleek red Pertamina gas station, with its dozen filling stations, was clearly visible from the road. There was an open air seating area, a sheltered food court, a mini mart, a prayer room, and restrooms. It took less than 15 minutes to arrive by motorbike, Yet the difference between the dense village landscape and the geometric lines of blinding white road were striking. All was clean and bright and straight, pulling Jatiwangi into an existing system of road signs and rest stops on the way to elsewhere, yet never entering the village itself. We went up an elevated bridge to watch large trucks and tourist buses go by at high speeds. From the ground perspectives, the villages were invisible, blocked by concrete barriers. Jatiwangi was not a destination on this map, as you can see here, which showed only Cikampek as the beginning and Cirebon as the end, with rest areas in between. Yet rest area number 8 served an intriguing function as a new tourist landmark for villagers and visitors to Jaff, who approached it from the wrong side, as it were. Local families and Jaff artists have visited the rest area to play, posting a variety of pictures online that show them relaxing and frolicking on the empty road. These photographs, which I saw on Facebook, were evidence of an infrastructural presence that had at one time generated conflict between villagers, local authorities, and external forces. Yet when the dust settled, the spirit of techno-political modernity seemed both distant and curious. The nation was more connected, but rural Jatiwangi remained for the most part outside this infrastructural imaginary. This next section is titled Preserving the Earth. There were already signs of a sophisticated media assemblage in Jatiwangi when I first visited in 2012, even though the village suffered the constraints of rural connectivity with uneven Wi-Fi and cellular reception. Jaff manages a website, a Tumblr page, a Facebook page, a radio station, and a TV station, and a YouTube channel, as well as various file sharing sites to disseminate their music albums and books. For every upcoming festival, Jaff creates a well-designed poster which they circulate on social media. Friends of Jaff, national and international, are invited to post these papers as their social media page profile for the duration of the festival. Jaff artists document special moments on Facebook and maintain regular social media contact with foreign artists who have visited them. Individual Jaff artists have been invited to prestigious arts programs abroad, and Jaff is a fixture at Indonesia's own large biennales and art gatherings. Its music bands have also been featured on national television more than a few times. The primary effect of Jaff's various projects and media engagements has been the amplification of Jaff's presence and social capital in the district. Youth are once again drawn to their hometowns by the cool factor of culture. And those who move to the big city are interested in moving back to their village. Local government actors pay attention to Jaff, and civil servants attend their meetings and participate in art projects. Jaff's networks extend to places like Perth, Manila, Copenhagen, Warsaw, Seoul, Fukuoka, Bangalore, Miami, Rotterdam, and Amsterdam. Jatiwangi can seem like a globalizing village that has entered national and global art circuits, but it is also a place that is disadvantaged by rural poverty and high unemployment, leaving it vulnerable to the urbanizing forces of global capital and state-led infrastructural intervention. Primarily, this has meant a threat to the traditional roof tile industry, which is now disappearing in some places and replaced by manufacturing factories. So, writing about the powerful hold of technopolitical objects on human imagination and subjectivity, Brian Larkin paraphrases Walter Benjamin's formulations of things that operate as forces and signs of history. Quote, "They form us as subjects not just on a technopolitical level, but also through this mobilization of affect and the senses of desire, pride, and frustration, feelings which can be deeply political," end quote. Jatiwangi's most abundant natural resource is clay, or tanah, an elemental ingredient in most building projects. Its main commodity has an integral role in the story of Indonesian modernity. The iconic brick-colored wavy roof tile with its simple interlocking technology has been exported to the rest of the country and to other parts of Southeast Asia for over a century. And locals are very proud of the fact that their roof tiles once adorned all government buildings. The affective thing that mobilizes local sentiment is the roof tile or genteng, is tied to an older understanding of infrastructure as local industry. Jeff researchers and artists have discovered that local youth no longer feel a connection to the land through rice cultivation, preferring other work opportunities instead. However, there has been a renewed interest by the same youth generation to inherit and carry on the roof tile businesses that their parents' generation left behind. One of the youngest factory owner managers is only 26 years old, a distinction that he's very proud of. Art and politics intersect here. The interests of factory workers to save an ailing industry coincide with Jeff artists' interests in fostering local participation and recuperating local livelihoods and cultural identity. And you can see one of the messages on the screen here that talk about brotherhood and earth and authenticity to be found in clay. The word tanah, meaning variously clay, earth, land, or soil, is laden with nationalist significance as well as local claims to terroir. It has therefore become a most effective concept for unifying local identity. Jeff artists draw upon the multiplicity of the word in their projects to diversify and multiply its meanings. Dana is a theme in all of Jeff's projects, and since visiting artists are mandated to engage with local villagers and explore local issues, Jatiwangi's clay, land, and earth form the material bedrock of all their art projects as well. The richness of the concept Tana sustains art on territory, land use, environmentalism, heritage, urbanization, as well as other projects that explore the sensuous and scientific properties of the clay itself. For the project Clay Neoism in 2015, Jeff artist Al Gori traveled to Eindhoven for the Age of Wonderland Festival, bringing with him different clays from Jatiwangi for an on-site performance of clay-based cuisine. Images from the festival show a room decorated with a large canvas backdrop painted with a color chart of the different clays, while at the lab table, Al Gori demonstrated how to smell, taste, and bake clay cookies in front of his Dutch audience. They've also done something similar in the art museum in Jakarta. Jeff's most salient attempts at generating mass participation and national level publicity often involve the two local mainstays of Genteng, which is the roof tile, and Jabor, which is the tile factory. Large-scale works involving 1,000 villagers playing music on Genteng, or entertaining events like bodybuilding competitions for factory workers employed at Jabor, have received positive television and online coverage by national news outlets. These art spectacles enable their participants to deliver potent messages about the sustainability of the roof tile industry to village and district decision makers, even though the critical messages never survive the national news channels' need to portray Jeff events as evident of a quaint and harmonious rural life. At the same time that Jatiwangi's rural past and present are being displaced in most of their residents' imagination in favor of a heritage industry deemed equal, if not superior, to the invasive species of new garment factories, Jatiwangi remains a quintessential small place to most outsiders. Arjun Appadurai, the anthropologist best known for his theories of globalization, theorizes that contemporary senses and identities of place, which he calls locality, is fragile and must be constantly maintained, particularly in light of global media flows. I see the work that Jeff does as one of constant maintenance of place and community. One of the lessons Jeff artists have learned involves the modulation of scale. They use social media, formal and informal discussions, and art festivals to stage grand spectacles and to convey the intimate nuances of local issues and experiences. In both big and small works, that they are able to assert something of the community by metaphor, metonym, or spectacle. Their arts practice engages publicity without institutionalizing it and gives us a new way of thinking about art as activism. And I'm going to end here with an update from the latest activities that Jeff has been engaging in. Here is a Google Meetup in the COVID era, which says, let's meet virtually first. And it's the 15th anniversary of JAF, and they're still going strong in their projects in fostering a very strong sense of local cultural identity based on Tanah and Genteng. Thank you.